What is going on, YouTube? It is your boy, Faithful to God. And today, ooh, man, I almost threw myself off there. Yes, and today we are going to get back to the same old, which is correcting Hebrew Israelites. So, without further ado, I have posted the join link in the chat. It is pinned at the top of this live stream. So, hopefully we can get our Hebrew Israelite friends coming in here because I know I posted this to quite a few rooms on Facebook and other social media. So I want our Hebrew Israelite friends to join this live stream, and I want them to come in here so we can have a conversation. Hopefully we can see if they can prove some of their claims. Thus far, we've done 3 of these, not including the one tonight. And not a single Hebrew Israelite has been able to demonstrate any of their subjective claims. But with that being said, I also want Christian brothers and sisters, as you guys are coming in as this live stream proceeds, if you have any questions, feel free to ask your questions in the chat. I'll try to the best of my ability to answer your questions if I can. And if I don't have an answer, I will direct you to someone who does. If you are a Hebrew Israelite and you are a part of the Camp Hebrew Israelite spectrum, meaning you are a member of one of the camps, whether it be Sakari or IUIC or GMS or ISUPK or Gathering of Christ Church or any of the other groups, if you come in here, you are under obligation before we get to anything else to demonstrate your claim of being an Israelite. That is always going to be one of the caveats and prerequisites for us to even engage in a conversation moving forward. You must demonstrate your claim of being an Israelite if you come up in here. So you are under obligation to show that you are who you claim you are. By the way, shout out to Jimmy for the super chat. I appreciate that. Definitely appreciate the kind words. Shout out to the brother. I'm not. I almost said your name, man. I almost doxed you. Shout out to my brother. You know who you are. Yeah, I had to catch myself. Anyways, I do want the Hebrew Israelites to come up in here. I do want them to engage in conversation. If you are a moderate Hebrew Israelite, meaning someone who does not hold to the camp perspective, I am going to ask you some questions. If you insist that it is of uttermost importance that one believe that you and the people you think are Israelites physically are Israelites, then you too are under obligation to demonstrate your claim. But if you are a Hebrew Israelite that doesn't think that's a priority and you disagree with the Christian faith, then out of fairness, I won't oblige you in trying to prove your claim because obviously you're not making that a priority. And we can get into other topics, such as your view of the law, your view of the deity of Christ, whether you accept it or not, your view of who really how salvation is obtained, and taking it for granted. If you believe that salvation is in some way lessened for the Gentiles, then you are under obligation to demonstrate your claim of being an Israelite. Because if you say Gentiles are going to be second class citizens, you'd better make sure you're not one of those second class citizens. So we're going to go through your claim if you say that. Even if you tell me, oh, well, I don't think it's really that important to know who the Israelites are, but Gentiles are going to be second class citizens. Yes, you're under obligation to demonstrate your claim as well. But if you say, no, anybody can be saved, Gentiles have equal footing, but in order for them to be right, they got to keep the law of Moses. They have to observe the commandments of the previous covenant, and they have to do XYZ, i.e., work salvation. Then we're going to explore those claims and we're going to debunk you there without necessarily getting into the identity spectrum of your doctrine. But without further ado, I really hope that brothers and sisters, and I really appreciate the super chats. Yeah, listen, y'all too kind, man. Listen, yeah, y'all are too kind. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate you, sis. Shout out to you. You always show love. You know, shout out to the brother Jimmy for the super chat earlier. But I do want to say I want the Hebrew Israelites to come into this live stream. I don't want to make this echo chamber necessarily for Christians. I want Hebrew Israelites to come in here. And to be fair to you, I've spoken with brothers and sisters behind the scenes. I'm going to put a clock up because I know I can be very verbose. I can be long-winded in how I talk. I know Hebrew Israelites can be very long-winded. So to ensure that the conversation is even, what I'm going to do is put a clock up. So I'm going to show it on my screen right now. When we have our discussion, we're going to agree to a time, and that is the amount of time that we're going to get to speak uninterrupted. So I'm going to show it now. So I'm going to have this clock up. Let me actually make this a little larger. And we are going to be on the clock. So it's going to run like this, something like this. Here, let me actually, hopefully you guys can see that. And we are going to go with this clock all the way through until the time finishes. And when you talk, I will be muted. I will not interrupt you. When it is my turn, you will be muted. You will not interrupt me. And if you do come off mic and interrupt me, you're going to get unbroadcasted, and I'm going to finish up my time uninterrupted. That's the way it's going to go. That's fair. I think that enables both sides to be heard without any of the shenanigans. So that's how we're going to do it moving forward. That's how we're going to engage in conversation moving forward. That way, there's no accusations of one side talking more than another or doing anything that might be perceived as nefarious by either side. And so the brother asked a question: do you know of any Hebrew Israelite groups that have formal creeds, confessions, and a systematic theology? Um, as far as having confessions and creeds, I guess the closest that I've ever seen is maybe some of the moderate groups will have like a statement of faith, and they might they'll acclimate it to something that you might find in a conventional evangelical church, something charismatic. And I'm talking specifically about the moderate Hebrew Israelites here, brother. The moderate Hebrew Israelites, some of them, especially those that their beliefs align closest to Christians, they will have kind of like a statement of faith on their websites. But as far as a formal creed is concerned, like something where a council was devised and they came together to agree to, certain parameters, scripturally speaking, I haven't seen any that have that, at least not any that I'm aware of yet. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I just haven't come across them. As far as a systematic theology, no, I would say that a lot of these groups seem to just be going with the flow, if you will, as they go along. So they will revise their positions, and it'll just be like essentially just based on the conversations that they're having, rather than them actually sitting for a long period of time thinking about their doctrines, musing over them, and trying to adjust where they can. It's more like they get into conversations don't necessarily go too well for them. They realize they have to adjust their doctrine, and they adjust the doctrine. They keep other elements of their doctrine, but there's nothing in place that that has like a systematic associated with it, where this point leads into this point, leads into this point. Some of their points, as you well know, when we have conversations, seem to conflict with each other. So in terms of having a proper systematic, no, I would say I have yet to come across a Hebrew Israelite group that, at least of the ones that I've interacted with, I've yet to come across any of them that have that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying the ones that I've personally encountered don't have that. But anyways, I see we have some more people joining. For the record, the link is pinned at the top of the room. So it is this link right here. You'll see it that says join link. I encourage Hebrew Israelites to join this live stream. If you think Christians don't have answers for your objections, this is your chance to prove that. This is your chance to demonstrate that. However, and I'm going to repeat it again, if you identify as a camp Hebrew Israelite, if you are a member of the camps, regardless of which camp, you are under obligation, before we get to anything else, to demonstrate your claim of being an Israelite. If you are a moderate Hebrew Israelite and you put eclipsing priority towards ethnic identity, specifically your ethnic identity, even if you say, oh, I believe salvation is for all people, but you need to believe that I'm an Israelite and the people I think are Israelites, or that Jesus is this skin color, or else you're not right with God, then you're also under obligation to demonstrate that you're an Israelite. If you're a moderate who doesn't think that's important, but you'll say something like, I think Gentiles are going to be second-class citizens in the kingdom of heaven. They can be saved, but they're going to be beneath the Israelites. Then you're also under obligation to demonstrate you're an Israelite if you come in here. However, if you don't hold to those viewpoints and you think, oh, salvation is for all people, it doesn't matter what you think, who you think the Israelites are, because anybody that keeps the law of Moses will be right with God, along with the faith in Christ, then we're going to explore your false understanding of how the covenants work and your misunderstanding of law and grace. That will be how the conversation goes. For those people, though, because they're not making their identity claim a priority, I will not insist that you demonstrate that you're an Israelite. That doesn't mean that I agree with the assertion that you're an Israelite. It just simply means that since you're not putting priority on that, I'm not going to put priority on that in getting you to demonstrate it. But we are going to explore your other false doctrines. Now, if I find out that any of you came into this live stream being deceptive, that you really do hold to a unnatural priority to ethnic identity, but for the sake of the conversation, so you could get to everything else, you decided to just lie, then I can guarantee you won't be back in this live stream again. And if I find out that your friends, who hold to your beliefs, try to come in here, I'm going to put their feet to the fire as if you and I were having a second round of conversation. So they're going to pay the price for your mistake if that is the case. I'm just going to be clear. I want to be fair, but I'm also very stern. I am a very much by the rules kind of person. So I expect you to behave yourself. I will behave myself. That's how we should be talking if we claim to believe in the Bible. Although I don't believe that your understanding of the Bible is correct. And I think that in the case of a significant amount of you, the doctrinal viewpoints that you hold to are going to have salvific implications against you if you continue to hold them. And so the brother says, thank you. I see you mentioned moderate Hebrew Israelites, for example, like Jews have Orthodox, Reformed, Liberal, and ultra-Orthodox Jews. How would you group the Hebrew Israelite camps, generally speaking? So the way I would group them, brothers, like this. So there are two general categories that I like to use. Now, I'm not saying my categorization has to reflect all Christian apologists that deal with this. So I know Vocab has his, and shout out to him. I respect Vocab. The way that I've categorized them is by moderate and extremists. So moderate generally encompasses those groups that are not camps. Extremists tend to be, but not exclusively, they tend to be more often than not your camp Hebrew Israelites. So, there are Hebrew Israelites that will claim they don't like to be lumped in with the camps. So those two general categories were made in order to separate moderate, meaning non-campers, people that don't want to be associated with the camps, from the camps who are aligned with the extremist viewpoints within the movement. So your extremists wouldn't just be the camps, however. It includes those who are sympathetic to their ideas, that are adjacent to their ideas. Your moderates are people who generally, normatively, do not hold to the camp doctrine. So people who typically are not holding to the view that salvation is only for Israel, those who generally don't hold to the 12 tribes chart, or who have, for example, favorable views to Gentiles. They think Gentiles can be saved in some capacity. So those would be your moderates. Your extremists are those who believe that salvation is only for Israel. And under that umbrella, you're going to have a myriad of groups, but it's primarily going to be the camp Hebrew Israelites. Whereas within the moderate spectrum, it's generally, again, going to be non-camp Hebrew Israelites. So I hope that helps. And the sister asks, the groups that think even Gentiles can receive salvation and enter the kingdom, but only as servants, is crazy. Oh yeah, they definitely exist. They're definitely there. Oh, you're gonna get your Yah crew in here. That's what's up. And we're gonna have them demonstrate their claim of being Israelites. So here's the link. And we're gonna make sure that they come up in here, and because I know what a lot of the Yah onlys hold to, I'm gonna have them demonstrate their claim before we get to anything else first. That's important. By the way, a lot of the Yah onlys, no, I can't say a lot of the Yah onlys, because you have guys on the Yah only side, the Old Testament only, Tanakh only side. So to answer Grant, to answer your question, what is Yah only? That's a term that certain Hebrew Israelites that only believe in the Old Testament have coined for themselves. A term that we generally use for them is the term Tanakh only. I know some of the people that self-identify as Yah only are really just Tanakh onlys, just with the with the revised term Yah only. So it's basically Hebrew Israelites that don't believe in the New Testament and only believe in the Old Testament or the Tanakh. The Tanakh is the acronym indicating the Old Testament. So any Hebrew Israelite that comes up in here that I'm aware of, you are under obligation to demonstrate your claim of being an Israelite before we get to anything else, unless you are a moderate who believes in Jesus but thinks you got to keep the law of Moses in some capacity. Then we will just engage in your claims about Mosaic law keeping. Everyone else is under obligation to demonstrate that they're an Israelite first if they come up in here before we get to anything else. And if you insist, I don't have to prove anything, I don't have, you're gonna see yourself unbroadcasted in the midst of your thought and removed from the stream. Because if you come in here, this is my house, and you are under obligation to demonstrate your claim. Let that be clear. So we're gonna wait for our friends to come up in here, and I bet you we get very few Hebrew Israelites in here given the way things have gone in the past, because Hebrew Israelites tend to be very subconscious and uncomfortable with having to demonstrate their claim of being Israelites. Very uncomfortable. For whatever reason, even though the whole reason that they even fell into their quirky ideologies is because of the identity claim. They will tell you someone lied to us and we've been lied to, and they've lied about everything. You'll have the Tanakh only said they've been lied to about the New Testament, all because the starting point is they were so-called lied to about their personal identity. Well, now we got to demonstrate your identity. Perhaps the misconception may be in the starting point that you are beginning from. So we'll deal with that. But please, it's already 17 minutes in. No Hebrew Israelites are entering this live stream. And I'm a bit disappointed by that, because I want you guys to come in here and actually prove your claims. I want you to come up in here and show me that your claims have validity, so we can critically fact check them for the audience, so people cannot be deceived into your false doctrines. The end goal is to get people to see how crazy a lot of your beliefs are, so they don't follow down the same false trajectory that you have. And more importantly, to get, Lord willing, all of you, if it were possible, out of this false doctrine and into the truth. And the real truth is found in Christ. So what I want to do is I want to make sure. Yeah, it's 19 people. I get it. But I know there's 19 people, but hey, I've already posted the link on social media, so Hebrew Israelites know that this is live. And generally speaking, even when we've had a bunch of people watching this, we really only get one or two people brave enough to come in here, which I think is unfortunate. I think that they should be a lot more adamant to defend their beliefs. I don't think it's a good look to claim that people don't want to deal with your assertions, and I'm saying that about them, and that nobody can handle the truth that you have, and then somehow you guys aren't even willing to come into live streams where you're going to be challenged. Now, again, I'm going to say this again. There's going to be a clock put up, so nobody thinks I'm just going to be monologuing at length and then giving them like just a very short amount of time to speak. I'm going to show the clock again. This will be up. We will agree to a time. You will speak for that time. So if we agree to 2 minutes, then you will get 2 minutes. I will get 2 minutes. You get 2 minutes. I get 2 minutes. And we'll do basically a back and forth of 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, going back and forth. All right. If we get if we get multiple people coming into the live stream, what we will do is we will do it for, let's say, a few rounds, and then I will move on to the next person, and then we'll interact with them. And so the brother asks, Brother Faithful, tell me how I met someone down here in Miami that was a part of Yahweh ben Yahweh's sect. Dude told me he caught bodies and all. He was money laundering for Ben Yahweh's sect. Charlatans. Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you something. So on a Clubhouse, there's a former member of Yahweh ben Yahweh's group that actually talked about his own experiences. I mean, the guy still self-identifies as an Israelite, but he talked about his own experiences, and he said, yeah, them dudes, they get dirty, man. They down and dirty. And they still, some of them are still around, bro. Some of them are actually still around. It's a cult group, legitimately. Yep. And oh, and I appreciate that, sis. God bless you. These live streams are definitely made for sisters and brothers in the chat to learn, to be able to understand the doctrinal beliefs of these groups and have a proper defense against them. But more importantly, and this is important, that we keep these people in prayer that they would come out of their deception. Grant asks, they probably avoid you. I've watched Vocab's channel for some time and noticed Israelites don't pull up as much in that, even in that chat. Yeah, they definitely try to avoid us at all costs unless it's one of their echo chambers. Uh, hey, what's going on, brother? Israelite only camp killer. What's going on, bro? So they asked, does Solomon 1:5-6 prove Israelites were not black? Because why would the daughters of Israelites look down fear upon black skin if they indeed were black? The LSV version says hate. So that passage is really, if we look at it here, let me pull it up on my end while we wait for people to come up here. And by the way, I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Let me actually stop sharing on this side. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Unless I was already. All right, let me see. So we're going to go to Bible Gateway. I'm going to pull this up in the ESV. And matter of fact, I'm going to pull up in the Hebrew too, because I want you to see the Hebrew text. So no, that passage isn't talking down on like dark or black skin. It's the context of the chapter is talking about the woman that Solomon is writing about, who was basically here, I'll explain in a moment because I don't want to miss this point, but I do want to pull up the verses first before I forget, because I got a multitask over here. So I'm going to do 5 and 6. Yeah, I'm going to do it this way, 5 and 6. And then, all right, here we go. And this is going to be the relevant verse. By the way, what's going on? How music, man? I see you in the chat. What's going on, man? Even if you have a Semite lineage, that doesn't make you an Israelite. That just means you're related at some point to a Semite, but you are currently whatever you today in Christ is the only way today. That's right. All right. So to answer Israelite only camp killer, to answer their question, we're going to go to Songs of Solomon 1:5-6. This is the ESV, by the way, if you're wondering. And hopefully you can see my screen. Hopefully this is not too. Yeah, let me do that. Hopefully you can see this. So it begins, I am very dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not gaze at me because I am dark, because the sun has looked at me. So if we look at the Hebrew here, right, you'll notice that the word shekorah is in the feminine construction. So you see where it says ADJ-FS. That stands for adjective in the feminine singular. When you go to the next verse, you'll notice that it is, again, feminine singular. You'll see right there. So it's a woman speaking. Because the sun has tanned me. You see the relevant Hebrew word here. Because the sun has tanned me. When you look at it, it's because of the idea of being outside. You were like a worker. It was kind of seen as a sort of how do I put it in a mild manner, like a kind of lowly servitile position, not because of necessarily the skin tone, but because being outside and constantly being in the sun and being inside was kind of seen as being quote unquote better, even in those ancient Near East societies, because the people that were inside were generally the people that had servants doing the laborious work, especially if the person who's inside was paying the workers and had the means monetarily to pay them. So the passage is basically saying, not to look down on me because of my, servitile state. That doesn't mean that people who automatically have dark skin are servitile, because you could be wealthy and have dark skin, if you catch my drift. It's really in reference to being out in the sun, because that's why the relevant passage says, because the sun has looked upon me, or the sun has tanned me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards. By my own vineyard I have not kept. Meaning this person was serving someone else. And instead of having their own vineyard that they kept there, the keeper of someone else's vineyard. Makes sense? So the idea of servitude is in view there. So that's really what's being conveyed. Oh yeah, yeah. Listen, to the brother Yeshua, faithful. I thought you would come on Friday. Yeah, I said I might come on today, and I had the opportunity, but I might still show up Friday. Of course, we'll see, or I might have a upload ready for you, brothers and sisters. So be on the lookout for that, regardless of what is shown. But definitely something that I hope will edify you all, because that's the end goal. So I see Pharaoh Mizraim asks, question, if Black Americans and West Africans are not Israelites, then who are the biblical ancestors of Black Americans? Or are we not in the Bible at all? Well, the biblical text never identifies modern people groups. That's assertions that are made by people anachronistically trying to associate themselves. What the Bible says definitively is that we all descend from Adam. However, it doesn't say, for example, obviously because the biblical text wasn't written in modern times, it doesn't say that North Americans 2,000 years into the future will definitively be descendants of Japheth or descendants of Shem or anything like that. That's not what you find in the biblical text. What we do find in the biblical text, for example, when you get to Acts 17, let me pull that up on my screen. You'll notice that Paul says that we all descend from one, i.e., one man, and that one man being Adam. And so this is Acts 17. And when he spoke to the Greek Stoic and philosophers, like it says right here, look, let me show you. And it is in verse, just so you can see who he's talking to. Let me actually get the relevant passage. It should be in verse 18. Some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers also conversed with him. And some said, what does this babbler wish to say? Others said, he seems to be a preacher of foreign divinities because he was preaching Jesus and the resurrection. So notice he's talking to the people of Athens. Now, does saying Epicurean and Stoic philosophers tell us definitively who specifically they descend from? Does it tell us if they're descendants of Japheth or whether they're descendants of Ham or whether they're descendants of Shem? No, it doesn't tell us that definitively. However, this is something that we do know. Because he quotes Deuteronomy 32, he paraphrases Deuteronomy 32. In a moment, I'll show you what verse, which is about the non-Israelites. Then we can at least rest assured that he's talking about non-Israelites. But do we know definitively if he is talking about specifically the sons of Japheth or specifically the sons of Ham? No, we don't know that. There's nothing in the text that indicates he is talking specifically to, let's say, the descendants of the Canaanites or the descendants of the Cushites or the descendants of the various sons of Japheth, like Togarmah or so on. Like, we don't have that. Or even if it's necessarily the descendants of Yawan, of Javan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and I'm going to read this relevant part here. Let me make this because I feel like the text is too small. Now, look what he says in verse 26. No, let's actually start a little bit earlier. Let's actually start in 24. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one, i.e., one man, every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him, yet he is actually not far from each one of us. Now, what was he saying here when we read this verse right here? And he made from one, meaning one man, every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. Well, it's actually in reference to Deuteronomy. It's a paraphrase of Deuteronomy 32. And it's actually verse 8. And it says, when the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Right? And then this portion says, but the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is allotted heritage in reference to the people of Israel under the old covenant. We know that the book of Acts is dealing with the times of the new covenant. And in the new covenant, we know Christ's command, make disciples of all the nations, meaning literally teach all the nations. We know that this is exactly what Paul himself is doing, because in Acts 9, that was the command that Jesus told um, um, Ananias to give to him in order that Paul's sight would be restored. So the reason I brought that up is because it's, and by the way, you'll notice something interesting. Deuteronomy 32:8. If those of you who read the King James, you'll notice it doesn't say sons of Israel. Our oldest manuscripts read sons of God in reference to the angelic beings. And we know this because the Septuagint, which is based on older Hebrew manuscripts than the Masoretic text, which is the basis of the King James version in the Old Testament, in the Septuagint, it reads the angelos of God, the angels of God. Dr. Michael Heiser actually has a great paper that deals with this, with Deuteronomy 32:8. If you just type in Dr. Michael Heiser, Deuteronomy 32:8, you'll be able to get the paper and you'll be able to read it for yourself. So you can see why this is a problem for our Hebrew Israelite friends that like to stick to only the King James. But let's go back. And let me actually look, because I feel like I just want to make sure that we actually have our friends coming in here. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the chat again. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And I would like for the Hebrew Israelites that are in the chat to not be chat warriors and come in here. For the mods, and I'm saying this to the brother and anybody else who's currently modding, if I drop the link and the Hebrew Israelites refuse to come into this live stream, do not allow the Hebrew Israelites to keep typing in the chat. Time them out, and we will make them come into the live stream. We don't want chat warriors. We want people to actually join the live stream and engage in conversation and not hide out in the chat. Now, if you're a Hebrew Israelite and you're unable to come in here because of your obligations for whatever reason, let's say you're at work and you can only type, please don't try to think that you're going to get a fast one in because, oh, well, he's not going to press me. I'm just going to ask questions from the chat, because you will get timed out. I want you to have a one-on-one. I want you to stand on your square. I want to see how you do in a live conversation and not hiding out in the chat where you ignore my questions and you just continually ask me to show and demonstrate X, Y, Z. No, I want you to demonstrate your claims as well. And that is fair. So anybody that is being a chat warrior that is told to come into the live stream, if they refuse, time them out. If you're a Hebrew Israelite and you cannot come in, I suggest you don't type in the chat, because this is a live stream for you to join the live stream, not for you to sit in the chat in safety, pretending like you're just going to, antagonize the people in the chat and antagonize me, the host, while not actually interacting with any of the points directly. So mods, you already know, any Hebrew Israelite that sticks in the chat and is refusing to come in here, time them out. All right. And I'm going to say this again. I'm posting the chat. I'm going to post some of the comments. I'm going to insist that they come in this live stream. So I'm going to continue to the person's question, to Pharaoh Mizraim. There's no passage that's going to say explicitly what modern people currently, what their lineage is crossing the span of a millennia backwards. If you think there is, here is the link. It is in the chat. You come in here and let's get into your claims. Now, Moray, Josiah, quote unquote, Moray says, no historical biblical scholarship whatsoever. The sons of Noah are identified today by their tongue and location. If you can't biblically identify the only covenant people of Yah, then throw the Bible. Well, I'm going to have you click on the link and demonstrate your claim in this live stream. If you cannot do that, bye-bye. Bye-bye. So you come in here and we'll have a discussion and we will examine your methodology to see if it is indeed basura, as we like to say in Spanish. If it is garbage, as my old school New York people like to say. And the AI Frontier Network says, the funniest doctrine is how Christians believe Noah had a white son. People want to be Bible experts, but can't figure out the table of nations are Y-DNA haplogroups. All of Noah's sons were black. Well, you're also more than welcome to come up in here so we can have a discussion on it. Since Y-DNA is one of my specialties, and I would love to have that conversation with you. So if you come up in here, you will be obliged in that conversation. If you refuse to come up in here, well, you're going to get timed out. In fact, you're going to get timed out right now. So I ensure you come up in here. So you're being timed out. So this way you can come up in here. And if I catch you typing in the chat again and not coming up in here, you're just going to get hidden from the chat. You will not be able to type. And then you'll have no other choice but to come up in here. All right. So let's look at some more comments. And I noticed that you have no Hebrew Israelites coming up in here. Could it be that our friends are a little scared to have a conversation about the things that they're so confident to discuss? Why, I would think that Hebrew Israelites would be running up in here to try to prove their claims. I wonder why they're not coming up in here. Maybe because the person that they're going to talk to knows their arguments. So Brandon says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit. That's the Trinity, by the way. Jesus commands, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Amen. But our as yet our unverified Hebrew Israelite friends, unconfirmed Hebrew Israelite friends, as yet to prove that they are descendant of Jacob, Hebrew Israelite friends, seemingly don't want to come up into this stream. I wonder why. Oh, brother, hey, JD, shout out to you. I think they really are trying to avoid you. I think so too. Oh, there we go. Josiah, you came up in here. I appreciate it. Sir. Let me actually stop screen sharing. By the way, you don't have to turn your camera on. You can keep your camera off. So I just want you to feel comfortable. You don't have to be on camera. So if you'd like to turn your camera off, yeah, there you go. That's good. Okay, I'm going to add you in here. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on? How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Josiah, I wanted to ask you a question because it's important that I know what your perspective is because I don't like to lump people who self-identify as Israelites together. Do you mind if I ask you some questions? It's not to accuse you of anything. It's just to know what your it's just to know what your perspective is.
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay, I appreciate it, sir. So in terms of who you believe Israelites are, do you believe that only the descendants of the slave trade are the Israelites, or do you have other people group in mind that you also believe are Israelites?
Okay, I'm gonna do what Yeshua do and answer a question with a question. Let me ask you a question. If I had to point anywhere in the scriptures to identify who the Israelites are today, where do you think I would go?
So I'm going to do what Yeshua does and ask a question to your question. So what I would like to know is who do you identify as Israelites yourself? Meaning, do you believe African Americans alone are Israelites, the people in the Caribbean with African Americans, meaning you're Afro-Caribbeans? Do you believe Western Central African peoples are Israelites? Like, who do you believe are Israelites?
Well, okay, so I guess I got to do it like this. In Deuteronomy 28 chapter, specifically the 46th verse, and I'm paraphrasing
A
the verse.
sign and a wonder upon you and your seed forever.
Okay, now, if he said that these are a sign and a wonder upon you and your seed forever, then I'm either going to believe the Bible, the word of Yah. And when I say the word of Yah, I'm not talking about the word of Paul or the word of any man. I'm talking about the word of Yah.
But that's
Is
also the word of Yah. So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Wait, so hold on, sir. Sir, I'm going to do something real quick. You notice that you're not able to speak now. You notice that you're now unbroadcasted. Nobody can hear you talking at the moment. So, what I'm going to do is get a little bit of order. So, I'm going to bring you back in and I expect you to conduct yourself with order. So, I'm going to ask again, who do you believe besides African Americans are also Israelites? We will deal with the curses after you deal with that. I want you to answer that question first because you're avoiding my question. Can you answer that question?
Okay, first and foremost, listening is an art, as the Israelite said on TV. I
Wait, wait.
presented, no, wait a minute,
Yeah,
hold
I know
up.
listening
Now,
is an art. Wait, stop.
why do you keep interrupting me? Why do
Here,
you
I'm
keep?
gonna. Yes, I'm gonna because I asked you a specific question and you're not answering my specific question. So I'm gonna do this again. I asked you specifically, do you believe that only African Americans are Israelites, or do you include others along with African Americans? I'm assuming that you believe African Americans are Israelites, correct? You do believe that, right? That African Americans are Israelites?
I believe that all that the signs fall upon historically are the Hebrew Israelites.
Do you believe that includes the majority of African Americans?
Oh, indeed, absolutely. That's how we got here by those signs that you read about in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. The
Okay,
same
wait,
way
I hear you.
that
Hold on,
the
hold
Haitians
on.
got to where they are, the same way that all of the islanders that came off of those slave ships got to where they are, and still suffering under the things that are multiple curses or signs that are in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. That
So
that
Josiah,
is
I hear you. Just hear me.
uh,
Hold on a second, because I'm asking questions. So I hear what you're saying, but I would like to at least pinpoint who you think Israelites are, because it's going to lead to other questions that I don't think you're going to have answers for. So please listen to what I'm asking, since you said listening is an art. You believe the majority of African Americans are Israelites. I heard you. Do you also believe the majority of Afro Caribbeans, the people that were taken as slaves from the west coast of Africa to the Caribbean islands, do you also believe they're Israelites? The
yeah,
majority?
we were on the same boats, absolutely.
Okay. Do you also believe that the majority of West and Central Africans from where these people came from are Israelites?
I believe that some of them are Israelites, absolutely.
Here's the problem with you're saying some of them are Israelites. So the majority of the people that are the descendants of slavery, specifically the males on their father's side, have a specific paternal haplogroup that is known as E1B1A. I need you to hear me. That is known as E1B1A. E1B1A is the dominant haplogroup of West and Central Africa today. The majority of the people in West and Central Africa have E1B1A. The majority of the descendants of slavery, because they are descendants of those people, have E1B1A in its various downstreams, meaning it's under the umbrella of E1B1A. That means that they're the same people on the father's side. You can't say some if the majority over there are the same people on their father's side as the majority of the descendants of slavery. And do you believe that a person is an Israelite only on the father's side, or do you include the mother's side as well?
The Bible teaches us that your identify way of identifying who you are descends from your father's line,
I got
patriarchal. So
mhm.
therefore, even though even in slavery, when some of us have a Gentile father from 6, 7, 8 generations ago, that child, even though they may have a dark complexion, is ethnically a Gentile.
So here's the problem that we have with
Wait a
your
minute,
line
hold
of
up, hold
reasoning.
up, wait a minute, hold
Hold on,
up. Now,
wait,
let me
no,
ask
no, no,
you. Wait,
don't hold up, sir.
no,
I'm
wait,
gonna.
come on, man. You're not being fair.
You're.
You're not
I
being
would like to
fair.
finish because I was in the middle of a thought. Let me at least
Okay,
express
but I
it. Then
still
when
want
I
to ask
finish,
you the question why I expressed
wait.
that. My thing
Okay, go
is,
ahead.
do the Bible teaches identity ethnically from your father's side? Is that what the Bible teaches, or am I mistaken?
I believe you're mistaken because you also have the passage in, if you will hear me, if you would read Numbers, the 27th chapter, because we don't start in Numbers chapter 1 and only read verse 18. Numbers has a 27th chapter as well, and an 8th verse that talks about the daughters of Zelophehad, who had their lineage, and that means their inheritance, since they were receiving an inheritance, which is gauged by lineage through the women, because they had no brothers. Their father had no sons. And to see a perfect example of that, you go to First Chronicles chapter 2, 31 through 35, where you have Shishan, who had no sons, only daughters. We know this because in verse 31, First Chronicles, here, I'll pull it up on my end so you can see it. Shishan literally has no sons, and yet the lineage is being traced through his daughter, Ahlai. We're going to see in a moment. So this is Chronicles chapter 2. Pulling it up on my screen so the audience can see it.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Uh-huh.
Repeat that again. I think I already know what you're talking
I'm
about.
going to
But
repeat it.
that.
Yeah, I will repeat it in a moment. Actually, let me pull up the book of Numbers 27 and 8. Matter of fact, we'll just put up 27 and then First Chronicles 2. We'll just do them side by side like that. Okay, do you see my screen?
I got my own Bible.
I know, but I just wanted to make sure you're looking at my screen so you can see I'm
No,
showing
I
it for
got
the
my own
audience.
Bible. Yeah, I can read the Bible. Go ahead. Where we
Then
at?
drew near the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, from the clans of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. The names of his daughter were pardon me, because you have a lot of background. I need you to mute because I can hear myself echoing. If you could just please mute for a moment, because I'm reading this and I'm gonna read First Chronicles afterwards. And I'm gonna read 31 through 35 in First Chronicles after I finish reading this. I'm only gonna read to about 8 or 9. The names of the daughters were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They stood before Moses and before Eleazar, the priest, his brother, and before the chiefs. Not Moses and before Eleazar, not his brother. And before the chiefs and all the congregation at the entrance of the tent of meeting, saying, our father died in the wilderness. He did not among the company of those who gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah. He was not among the company of those who gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah, but died for his own sin. He has no sons. Why should the name of our father be taken away from his clan because he had no son? Give to us a possession among our father's brothers. Moses brought their case before Yahweh, before the Lord. And the Lord Yahweh said to Moses, the daughters of Zelophehad are right. You shall give them possession of an inheritance, which is given by lineage, among their father's brothers, and transfer the inheritance of their father to them. And you shall speak to the people of Israel, saying, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. Now that's important. I'll even read verse 9 just in case. And if he has no daughter, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. So in other words, you give it to the daughters first, and if there's no daughter, then the brothers. Now let's go down here to First Chronicles chapter 2, and we're going to look at 31 through 35. And it says, the son of Apiam, Ishi, the son of Ishi, Shishan, the son, and this is a surrogate son here, of Shishan, Ahlai. How do we know it's a surrogate son, that it's really a woman? All we got to do is go down to verse 34. Now Shishan, 34. Now Shishan had no sons, only daughters. But Shishan had an Egyptian slave whose name was Jarha. So Shishan gave his daughter in marriage to Jarha, his slave, and she bore him Attai. The lineage is being traced through the woman. So it shows you that it's normatively traced through the man, but you do have the exception of it being traced through the woman, especially if there is no son in the family of the patriarch. You only have daughters. So that's an important distinction to be made. Okay. Were you guys able to see that on the screen? Because I noticed that someone says we didn't see anything. Were you guys able to see my my screen? If not, I'll just show it up on I'll show it up again on my screen if it's possible. And by the way, to the mods, I insist that we remove the chat warriors. I want them to come up in the live stream. I don't want them to stick around in the chat posting things that they have yet to demonstrate. So please insist on them coming into the stream. The link is pinned at the top. Anybody that is just trying to argue in the chat, direct them into the live stream. All right. So do you see it now, Josiah? You have to unmute. I don't know. You're muted right now, sir.
What we're speaking of is inheritance, okay? The ethnicity of those descendants did not change. They would still be ethnically Egyptian, but national because they were part of Israel's nationality by means of where they dwelt. They got this that was of her dad. So they got the inheritance, they got that, but their ethnicity did not change.
So do you see your screen where it says the sons of Judah? This has Judah's genealogy here. So this is in fact talking about Judah's genealogy. So telling us that, oh, it's only dealing with inheritance shows us that you don't understand how inheritance was actually given. It was given through genealogy. The reason why is because you had to have a man giving his inheritance to his son. If he doesn't have a son, then he has to give it to someone else, in this case, his daughter. His daughter becomes the surrogate son. And do you know how we know this is a cut against your perspective? All we have to do in the same chapter, the one that you're ignoring, oops, let me scroll too far, is see that the woman is being called his son. The woman is being called a ben, not a bat. You see it right here, and I will show you the Hebrew if you don't believe me. Do you see where it says the son of Shishan Ahlai? This one right here. I'm going to show you the Hebrew in a moment. Here, let me actually show you the Hebrew, because I'm almost convinced that you haven't looked at the Hebrew in that verse. So this is First Chronicles 2:31 in the Hebrew. And you're going to notice that the word ben is used there, or in the construct state, bene. You're going to notice that bene is being used there. That's number one. Okay? Let's actually look. I'm going to pull it up. And this is my screen. You'll see it in a moment. Now, do you see where it says ubene? Do you see it?
I'm reading exactly where you are.
Yeah. Do you see where it says ubene, right? Of Apiam. Ubene Ishi. And then what does it say? Ubene Shishan. It's the same ubene as here and here, with the exception that this person here is a woman. Now, even though the name is identified as proper masculine, it'll say the name of an Israelitess and of an Israelite. Now, the name of an Israelitess, you notice that's a female Israelite. And when we go down here to Brown Driver Briggs, feminine, daughter of Sheshan. Yet what is the daughter, the woman, being referred to as? Ubene, which is and the son. There's no getting around that, man. So you might want to try something better.
I've not read nowhere in here where ethnicity had changed. You are still
Nobody's talking about an ethnicity changing. I never said an ethnicity change. So
you
don't
said
put words in my
ethnicity
mouth.
doesn't change, huh?
No, what I said, if you would have listened, because you said listening is an art, is that the lineage is traced not merely through the male all the time, because it's normatively traced through the male, but in the exception, it is traced through the woman. And we have an example of that. And it was just shown to you, and you just merely tried to hand wave it away.
Wait, but
guess what? We're not.
Wait, hold on.
I'm gonna help here. I'm gonna help you so you can listen, because you said listening is an art. So I would like for you to listen. So now nobody can hear you right now. I'm gonna finish. Matter of fact, let's do the following, man, because I feel like this is gonna go. We're gonna have a clock up because it's gonna be impossible to continue this conversation with you interrupting. So we're gonna put a clock up. I'm going to get 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted. You're going to get 2 minutes. If I notice that you're not dealing with any of my points, you're going to get removed from the live stream, and then I'm going to continue with someone else. No disrespect to you, but I'm very stern in how I do things on this channel, and I expect Christians and Hebrew Israelites to behave themselves. So we're going to do the following. Here goes the clock. I'm going to get 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted. You're going to get 2 minutes. If I notice you're not dealing with my points, however, you're not going to be in the stream much longer. So I'm going to put you in the back while I speak uninterrupted because I get the feeling that you're going to come off mic. So I'm going to have you in the back. I'm going to speak uninterrupted for these 2 minutes. When I'm done, you get 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted. So here goes my time. You'll see it. It's on the screen. So you can't say that I'm making it up or I added minutes or whatever. So the problem that we have here is that you are insisting that the lineage can only be traced through the male when we do have an exception of it being traced through the woman, according to what the law prescribed for inheritance. Inheritance is given with genealogy. That is clearly stated in the text. You have to ignore the text to come to your conclusion, and you simply do not have. Oh, I don't know why this time didn't start. I'm sorry. Hold on. Matter of fact, you know what? Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. Yeah. So, anyways, the time was going. It just wasn't showing it moving on my side. I'm sorry. So the issue that we have here is that your understanding doesn't reflect the biblical understanding. In other words, you don't know what you're talking about. If you're just going to hand wave it away and you're going to try to misrepresent me, oh, it's a person's their lineage doesn't change. It's because you don't understand how lineage works biblically. Because you have a man whose father is an Egyptian, and yet he's not identified as a son of Mizraim. He is identified as a son of Judah through his mother because her father, Shishan, was a Judahite. That's not hard to understand. It's in the biblical text. We have it in the law, and we have it reflected in First Chronicles, which deals with the genealogy of Judah in chapter 2, along with the other sons that are mentioned. Now, I'm going to stop my time and ask you to deal with that directly. Do not ignore that point, and do not misrepresent me again. So I'm stopping my time. I'm giving up the rest of my time, and I'm going to bring you back. You're going to get 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted. I'd better hear a response to what I said. And I'm starting your time as soon as you speak.
Okay. You started it. You started it, right?
Yes.
From what I can see from reading what I just read, is that this Israelite had no male sons, but he had at least a daughter. And in both passages that you pointed out, and the other one, the daughters came to Moses to talk about what their situation was. And when they came to him, they got the inheritance of their father. It was bequeathed to them because they were his daughters. In this case here, you find a man that has daughters but no son, but he owns whatever he owns in Yahuda. He owns that. And so here, just like in the previous thing, the daughter has possession or inherited the possession that was her father, and she ended up having a Egyptian by ethnicity. She got with him, and she had sons by the according to what I just read. Now I might have misread it, but I don't think I misread it. And now her sons, which are ethnic Egyptians, have the possession that is in Yahuda based off of their mother. It's not a real hard thing to understand, but just like what you said when you were speaking before you was on the time, and you said it don't change their ethnicity, and I'm saying the exact same
Your
thing. It
time is
don't
up.
change.
Your time is up. During that whole time, I didn't hear you interact with my points directly. I saw you skirting around my point. Let's try this again. I'm going to unbroadcast you, and I'm going to repeat the same thing I said, and we're going to see if you actually deal with it directly. I want the audience to see that he's not actually directly dealing with my point. He continues to hand wave it away. Oh, it's just inheritance. My friend doesn't seem to understand how inheritance worked in the Israelite culture. So the timer is still going, but I'm going to share my screen over here so you guys can see the verse again, because I want you to see how he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is my screen. Look at it all. This is going to be the relevant verse. This is First Chronicles. I'm going to go right back. Go back to the English translation. And you'll notice that this is literally a genealogy right here. You notice where it's saying the sons of Judah right here in verse 3. The sons of Judah, then it gives their genealogies going down. And then when you get all the way down, this is still dealing with these genealogies. Then you're going to get to about 31, and it's going to say the following. In 31, it's going to say, the son of Apiam, Ishi. This is still Judah's genealogy. The son of Ishi, Shishan. The son of Shishan, Ahlai. Now you're still in Judah's genealogy. Now Shishan, this is the genealogy. Now Shishan had no sons, only daughters. Numbers 27 and 8. But Shishan had an Egyptian slave whose name was Jarha. So Shishan gave his daughter in marriage to Jarha. And she, notice that she's in the genealogy, bore him Attai. The reason why is because she was mentioned in verse 31. 31 literally has her in view. Because this man, Shishan, had no sons, only daughters. Our friend has to try to skirt around that because he has no answer for that. He has no answer when it says Shishan had no sons, only daughters. So the genealogy is clearly being traced through the woman. There is nothing that precludes that from happening if a man has no sons. And so our friend is simply showing you he doesn't understand how the law works. He doesn't understand how the rest of Tanakh works. And until he shows us how this is reconcilable in his view, he can't just simply hand wave it away. He must demonstrate it. Here it is. And so the time is up. And now I'm going to get you to come back in here, and I expect to hear a response directly.
First of all, you can't expect anything from me, but
yes, I can. This is my platform. I can expect everything.
But you can't, because you don't control my mouth.
Well, I control you being in the stream. Notice you're not in the stream anymore. If I'm going to try this one more time, I'm going to bring you back in. The wicked flee when none pursueth. Says I don't control his mouth. Like you're not on a platform and you're not on a clock. And you're not gonna come in here and monologue your way around my points. You're gonna deal directly with my points. And every Hebrew Israelite that comes up in here is under obligation to deal with the points being raised. Otherwise, you're not gonna be in here much longer, just like this gentleman, because he decided to get his flea on Proverbs 28 and 1 style. That's crazy. That's insane to me. So I hope brothers and sisters don't think I'm being too rough. I'm being stern because I want Hebrew Israelites to actually deal with the points being raised, because I want them to see that their perspective doesn't have answers for this. That's the reality. Exactly. Crazy. They don't listen at all. That's right, bro. They do not listen. It's really, really frustrating having conversations with dudes that don't listen. It's amazing, man. I think you just cut him. Yeah, man. I think he cut himself, man. As soon as he tried to say, this has nothing to do with genealogy. And then meanwhile, in the chapter itself, it's literally Judah's genealogy. Like you can't get around that. There's no getting around that obvious fact, man. Yeah, man. It's extremely frustrating having these conversations with some of these guys. But anyways, what I want to do is, again, I'm going to see if we can get another Hebrew Israelite coming in here. And for the record, don't be like the gentleman that was in here. No disrespect to him, but don't be like him. Please don't come in here stubborn. Don't come in here acting like you're going to try to finagle me and try to get one over on me. That's not going to happen. Be honest. Be objective. We didn't even get to his claim of here's the thing, right? When I told him, when he brought up West and Central Africans, he says some of them are Israelites. He doesn't realize that the majority of West and Central Africans today are the exact same people on their father's side as the majority of African Americans. So it can't be some. But let me show you something that would contradict his perspective. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. So he says that the majority And the majority of the descendants of slavery are not few in number on this side of the world. But let's see what Deuteronomy chapter 4 says. Does Deuteronomy 4 say they're going to be in extremely large numbers, or does it say that they would be few in number into the nations where the Lord would scatter them? Since he wants to make an appeal to Deuteronomy. And we didn't even get to Deuteronomy 28:52 because I wanted to see when that happened to African Americans, because as of yet, I have yet to find a Hebrew Israelite that can demonstrate Deuteronomy 28:52 or Deuteronomy 28:36 happened to African Americans, along with Deuteronomy 28:21 and a bunch of other curses in that chapter, since you consistently have the phrases in the land, in the land, in the land, from the land. Western Central Africans were not taken from the land of Israel. They were taken from Western Central Africa because they're not Israelites. They're not the recipient audience of those particular words. That's the sad part, that these guys can't deal with the reality of it, you know? Yep, and as Brandon says, wow, having prideful heart issues and being stubborn will cause spiritual blindness, not being able to have understanding or revelation with deeper perspectives and meaning behind the word of God. That's right. That's why these guys don't want to come up in here and have a meaningful dialogue. They think they're going to come up in here and do what they do on other platforms with other people that don't know their breakdowns. But for someone who does know their doctrine, you see how they don't do very well, right? You see how they're like, oh, you're not going to control me. Control me was me simply telling him to stay on topic, focus on what I'm asking him, and deal with it directly. Not skirt around it, not just keep repeating over and over that that's not what that means. And okay, so why does the text read the way that it does? And he's just going to hand wave it away. He's going to give you a baseless explanation, not based on the scriptures, just based on his own misunderstanding of the text. Now look what it says right here. And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few. You will be left few in number among the nations where the Lord will drive you. Little, small, few. Well, Western Central Africans are not few in number in Western Central Africa. They're also not few in number in Jamaica or the Bahamas or Trinidad. They're not few in number in Barbados. They're not few in number in Suriname. They're not few in number in Brazil. They're not few in number in the United States of America, where they are 38 million. But do you know who is few in number and who these words actually, ironically enough, fit? Those, 14 to 15, maybe 16 million Jews in the entire planet. There are more African Americans in the United States alone, because African Americans live abroad, but there are more African Americans in the United States alone than there are Jews on the planet. Who does few in number fit? That's a cut, by the way. It's amazing to me to think that our friend doesn't know that Western Central Africans, the ones that gave rise to the people that were taken as slaves to the Americas, they were in Western Central Africa before Abraham was even born. How are they then the descendants of Abraham if they pre-exist Abraham in a completely different people group from Abraham? There's no getting around that. Yeah, I guess if you could say like have Semitic ancestry, sure. But if you look at that, that would mean 99% of African Americans don't have Semitic ancestry, which means the vast overwhelming majority do not. And that makes it problematic for our Hebrew Israelite friends who are insisting that the majority of them are somehow Semites, that they are somehow the biblical Israelites. No, they're not. They objectively are not. And for those who like to use AI, you can ask ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT or Gemini, are Western Central African descendants of slavery? Or just ask it, are African Americans the biblical Israelites? It's going to tell you no, because the genetic and historical evidence doesn't point in that direction. Even if these guys try to make arguments for there being Jews in West Africa, if we get into that topic, it's going to look really bad for the Hebrew Israelites when we realize that those Jews are the very Jews that they reject as Jews. It's going to look really, really bad when we start looking at old sources like they like to appeal to and realize who the old writers are identifying those Jews as. Oh, you funny, man. Bruce Lee was an Israelite. Bro knew how to kick it. Oh, man, I ain't seen you in a minute, G-Con. And our friend who shall remain nameless, you know who you are. Jews in antiquity were likely 2 to 5 million Jews in antiquity were likely 2 to 5 million, juxtaposed to who they claim are Jews today. Descendants of slaves multiplied despite the conditions they attribute to Deuteronomy 28. And for the record, when they say a sign and a wonder upon you and your seed forever, they're going to say all the curses, right? Well, when did African Americans as a people group under the name African Americans experience Deuteronomy 28:52 in the land of Israel? Deuteronomy 28:52 says, and they shall besiege you in all your towns within the land that the Lord your God has given you. That's in reference to the land of Israel. According to Deuteronomy 27:1-3, which literally identifies the land that the Lord was giving them as the land of Canaan, which became the land of Israel. There's just no getting around that. Western Central Africans weren't taken from the land of Israel. They were taken off the west coast of Africa. So where their ancestors were historically before there was an Abraham, which is the ironic part about that. So I want our Hebrew Israelite friends to come in here, please. Please come in here. It is an hour and 11 minutes. We had one guy come in here, did terribly, and then got his flea on Proverbs 28:1 style. We don't want you to get your flea on. We want you to come in here and have a dialogue with us. And I'll put the link in the chat again. And I really want you guys to come in here and prove to us your claims. If you're a camper, you're under obligation to prove your identity claim. If you're one of these moderates that has puts eclipsing priority on identity, you're also under obligation. That guy came in here, couldn't prove it, you know? And to the brother, he says, there is no scripture that serves as a replacement for a DNA test. And what he means by that is if you're going to make an ethnicity claim, just simply pointing to a verse, especially a verse that you can't demonstrate actually applies to you, and saying that's my people doesn't actually prove those are your people. A DNA test would at the very least prove the actual people group that they belong to, even if it's just associating them with the people group in the modern sense of where they are. And I think that's a problem for Hebrew Israelites because they don't want to do that. Yep, and Christ Stepa, FG, I'm going to mispronounce your name, FGC says, could you help me when they talk about Revelation 13:9? Absolutely. All you have to do is go to a more accurate translation, and reading the context is going to help you. They're misreading the King James there. Leadeth into captivity, goeth into captivity. It's because they're basing it on the reading of the King James. But all we have to do is read a more accurate modern translation and see that that argument falls apart on them. So this is in the ESV. And look what it says when we scroll down. First of all, keep in mind that there's a context, right? You see all of this context that they have to kind of gloss over when they get to verse 10. Verse 9. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Here is the call for the endurance and the faith of the saints. Now, what is this in reference to if you just read it in context? And the beast that I saw, here, let's actually read it a little earlier. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea. So, you know, the sea later in Revelation is identified as people. With 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, and its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth like a lion's mouth. So you see a parallel to this in Daniel, the beast of Daniel. And to it, the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshiped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who can fight against it? And the beast was given a mouth, uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, and that is those who dwell in heaven. It was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on the earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of the life of the Lamb who was slain. Now, notice that there's a little bit of context. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. And this is precisely what we see happening in Revelation 19 when it talks about those people that follow the beast. And you'll see it with a little context. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered together to make war against him who was sitting on the horse and against his army, talking about Christ. And the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who was in its presence and had done the signs by which, and I heard someone coming in, so I'm going to bring you in a moment, by which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped its image. You hear that? Those two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur, and the rest were slain with the sword that came from the mouth of him who was sitting on the horse, and all the birds were gorged with their flesh. Now, notice what it says up here. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun with a loud voice. He called to all the birds that fly directly overhead, "Come, gather for the great supper of God, to eat the flesh of kings and the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses and their riders, and the flesh of all men, both free and slave, both small and great." You notice how now with a little bit of context and revelation, we can understand what 13 is talking about? But Hebrew Israelites make this terrible mistake of reading their presuppositions into the text. So Pharaoh Mizraim is in the live stream. What's going on, Pharaoh?
Yes, peace. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. By the way, are you when you call yourself Pharaoh, that's a bit strange. Are you like what, Kemetic Hebrew or something? Or
No. I'm not a Hebrew Israelite.
so you're not a Hebrew Israelite. This live stream is for Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah. I'm not a Hebrew Israelite. But yeah,
So if
I know.
did you hear what I said, that this live stream is for Hebrew Israelites?
Yeah. I'll be brief.
Yeah. Do you
Though.
notice that if you're not a Hebrew
If you
Israelite,
allow,
then
if you allow me to, I'll be brief because I just got a question.
okay, you want to be brief? Nah, like if you're not a Hebrew Israelite, then I don't need you in the stream.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought
Are
it
you
was.
sympathetic to their ideas?
No. I believe that it is impossible for Black Americans to be Israelites.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then this is not the stream for you because this is opposing their viewpoints.
Oh,
I, as
okay.
a Christian,
Yeah, I thought
oppose
it.
their
Yeah,
doctrinal viewpoints.
yeah. I thought it was an open panel. So yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'll just step off and let you get back to your show. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. All right, man. I want some Hebrew Israelites coming in here. I don't want anybody that is not a Hebrew Israelite to come in here unless you're a Christian and you're in here to ask a question. Any Christian brother and sister can come in here and ask a question. Ah, man, you know what? I should have let this guy stay because if he wanted to ask a question, you know what? Pharaoh Mizraim, if you're listening to this, come back in here. I'm not going to do you like that. If you want to ask a question relevant to their doctrinal beliefs, come back in here. You know what? If you're able to listen, you're welcome to come back in here and ask a question as long as the question is relevant to something that you'd like to hear in response to, like, how do you deal with this when they bring up XYZ? So again, because I don't want to do you dirty like that. I don't want it to make it seem like if you're not a Christian, you can't ask questions. You can ask questions. Man, I should have had him stick around. You know what? You live and you learn. You live and you learn. Yeah, I didn't want to do him like that. So Pharaoh Mizraim, if you want to come back in and ask a question relevant to to the topic of Hebrew Israelism, you're more than welcome to come back in here and ask your question if you like. But please let it be a question that's relevant to that, not a question about something that you might be in disagreement with concerning the Bible, if that's the case, because we're not going to have that in this stream. But if it's a question relevant to your disagreements with them, you can come back in here. All right, so I'm going to post a link in the chat again. Hopefully, man. Short-sightedness from your boy Faithful. Y'all can forgive me for that one. Sometimes we're a little short-sighted. And Pharaoh Mizraim, I hope you will forgive me if I didn't, I want you to come back in here and ask your question if possible. So definitely do that if you get a chance. If you would like to ask a question. If not, then it's all good. If any of the brothers and sisters have any questions, feel free to ask your questions now. If you're a Hebrew Israelite, just know we don't want any of the shenanigans in here. Yep, there you go. I appreciate you for coming back, Pharaoh. If you have a question relevant to their beliefs, that's fine. And forgive me, I should have thought about that maybe you have a question that pertains to them. So go right ahead, man. If you have a question, definitely ask.
Oh yeah, definitely, I forgive you. I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, but my question is like how would a Hebrew Israelite prove they're Israelite? Like, what will convince you to, like, what evidence would they have to show to strongly irrefutable to prove that they are an Israelite?
So what most Hebrew Israelites are going to do, not all of them, but most of them are going to do is make an appeal to the curses of Deuteronomy, right? Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter. But just reading that chapter, all one has to do is realize that it continually says in the land, in the land, in the land, from the land, in the curses, right? Now, first of all, that's not even a proper reading of that chapter. Reading it contextually, you have the blessings and the curses. So much like ancient Near East vassal treaties, where you have a condition: if you disobey, this will happen to you. If you obey, then you'll get this. So basically, there's a repercussion and a reward. If you obey, you get rewards. If you disobey, repercussions. Right. A lot
Mhm.
of them are only reading the repercussions in the chapter, and they're assuming this is talking about West and Central African descended people. So the issue that I have with their presupposition is that, one, Western Central African peoples were in Western Central Africa before Abraham was even born. That's number one. That's the most obvious fact. Secondly, for Hebrew Israelites that insist that they are different from the people in hold on a second. For Hebrew Israelites that insist that they are different from the people of Western Central Africa, well, genetically, that's not true, because if they're going to insist on a strict patrilineal reckoning of Israelite, Western
Mhm.
Central African people on their father's side have the exact same Y chromosome as the majority of African Americans and Afro Caribbean people, which is E1B1A in its downstreams, right?
Okay.
Because it makes sense. There are Western Central African descendants of slavery descend from Western Central African peoples. That's just common sense.
Got it. Got it.
So their methodology is just to look at the curses, but all one has to do is ask this question. Like, this is what I typically ask. Okay, when did Deuteronomy 28:52 happen to African Americans in the land of Israel as a people group under the name African American? Since they think African American is a proverb and a byword. They'll go to the passage, you shall become a proverb and a byword and a horror among the nations. So I'll ask them, since they think African American, the term is a proverb and byword, and since they think the curses are cyclical, meaning they think the curses are going to happen over and over, when did that curse happen to African Americans in the land of Israel, since that is what is in view? And they shall besiege you in all your towns within the land that the Lord your God has, past tense, given you, which is the land of Canaan. So when did they experience that curse in the land of Israel, which was formerly known as the land of Canaan? They didn't. Western Central African peoples as a people group were not in the land of Canaan, therefore, as a people group, therefore, that's not in reference to them.
Got
So
it.
it and then of course it can't be in reference to African Americans by extension. So it becomes a problem, because they would have to show something historical showing a mass migration, an overwhelming migration of African Americans going to the land of Israel, not like the Demona community or something like that. No, we mean like the people group, because they say we, African American, not that I'm African American, I'm saying they would say this. I'm Latino, by the way, if you're wondering. They would say,
Oh,
we, the African Americans, fit all the curses. Okay, well, what about that one? Or what about Deuteronomy 28:36, where it says that you and the king whom you set over you shall go into a land which the Lord, pardon me, shall go into captivity um, um, to a people that neither you nor your fathers have known. Okay, who was the king that went into captivity who monolithically ruled Western Central Africa and went into the transatlantic slave trade with the people? Well, there was
yeah.
no such king like that. These are already problems. Deuteronomy 28:21, when it talks about the pestilence in the land, again, when
Mhm.
did African Americans as a people group experience the pestilence in the land of Israel, according to verse 21? You know?
Yeah. Never. Never. Yeah, I definitely agree. Because it seems to me like they try to compare themselves to the lineage of Jesus Christ. I mean, like Jesus Christ, he has his whole lineage is mentioned, as the descendants the son of David, descendant of David, Abraham, and the Hebrew Israelites try to like compare themselves to that. That's like a that's like a 2,000-year-old ancient text, and they can't and they can't compare to that. And I just their whole movement is a big flaw. It's a big lie. Um, if they want to convince me that we are the Israelites, you know, I would have to see an ancient text, not an English text, an ancient text that's dated to after 78, like right after 70 AD, right after the Babylonian Assyrian captivity, that says Israelites were in West Africa. And they will have to show also a continuation of these Israelites in West Africa, starting from that point all the way to the slave trade. But what I see them doing is skipping over history and just making up stuff. And and also the people, our ancestors in the slave trade, they were called Negroes. They were never called Jews or Israelites. And it's like this whole their
Right, say
whole
that one
way.
more time. Say that last part one more time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that our ancestors in the slave trade, they
Mhm.
were known as Negroes. They were never called Jews or Israelites.
So
Like
let me at least, so there's a little bit of caveat there. So there were small pocket communities within Western Central Africa of actual Jews that seemed to proselytize small pockets of Western Central Africans. And so there were Western Central Africans that either amalgamated kind of Jewish customs into their practices. So we have old writers that talk about that. In fact, I did a live stream. If you do me a favor, look for the video. It'll have like a little so if you go into the live streams, right? Because there's two tabs now on YouTube, one for videos, one for live streams. Go to the live stream and look for oh, this guy. 93 funny. Go to the live stream portion and then look for one that has the thumbnail that has like a little devil figure, and it says ignorance is scary. Look for those words. If you find, you'll see the thumbnail. You won't be able to miss it. Um, Click on that one, and you'll see something that I think you'll find interesting, but also something that dismisses their claim, if that makes any sense. But to be fair though, and I'll give you a scholarly work. I think you'll find it interesting. There's a scholarly work called "Forgotten Diasporas." All right, uh, "Forgotten Diasporas," and I'll give you the name of the author in a moment, and I'm going to bring 93 in a second. So it says the name of the book is "Forgotten Diasporas: Jewish Communities in West Africa and the Making of the Atlantic World." So I really suggest that book because it shows these pocket communities in West Africa that you did have certain West Africans that this guy that was 93, man. Why listen. You got pocket communities in West Africa that were proselytized. So that did happen. So there was a small stream of Judaism that did go through there, but nothing significant that would encompass the vast, overwhelming majority of the transatlantic slave trade or the descendants of slavery, if that makes any sense. But there is legitimate scholarship that talks about this, but it's certainly not positing what Hebrew Israelites claim. You get what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely
And
yeah.
I think you can concur, 93, right? 93, can you hear us? Oh, snap. Yeah, you got to unmute, brother. If you're talking, we don't hear you, bro. So it might be something with the mic, man. Yeah, you might have to fix that mic, man. All right. Well, anyways, so Pharaoh Mizraim, are there any other questions that you have relevant to? By the way, 93. When I'm gonna put you in the back, man, because like there's no audio on your end. Anyways, um, but is there anything else that you like are interested in terms of how they arrive at some of their presuppositions?
You mean the Hebrew Israelites?
Hebrew Israelites, yeah.
Um, Yeah, I'm just not convinced that we are the Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, it's not supported by real history.
Right.
Um, yeah, but I would have to see that ancient connection. Yeah, and
Yeah. By the way,
I,
93, are you able to talk now? Nope, I still don't hear you, man. If you're trying to talk, we hear nothing, bro. By the way, that's my friend 93. He's one of the best independent researchers, man, out there. Shout out to him. We did some great presentations debunking Dante Fortson and Benaiah Israel. Um, by the way, which I suggest if you're interested, man, look for the playlist on my channel entitled Dante Fortson, Debunked and Exposed, and Benaiah Israel. I think Debunked and Exposed. I think just let me make sure that's how I titled them. Mess around, people be looking for that, and then let me see. Let me make sure because it's been a minute since I. Yeah, so it is Benaiah Israel debunked and Dante Fortson debunked and exposed. If you check out both of those playlists, we go over old sources that deal with community of Jews in West Africa. There go 93. Oh, this guy. You good now, man? Hello. Oh man, 93. You picked the worst time to have a. It's two of you in here. All right, can you hear it? Can you speak? Because we can't. Your mic is muted. Anyways, so 93 and I did presentations where we debunked a lot of these old sources that Hebrew Israelites appeal to. I think it's important for you to look at those videos because there are going to be Hebrew Israelites that make appeals to those sources, old sources. And you want to be prepared when you're dealing with them because a lot of them will go into old books that make mention of communities in West Africa, of actual Jews, and in some cases, these Jews intermarried with the local population. So you're going to read some sources that call these Jews the Black Jews, or you're going to read about a group of Jews called Lanzados and Ladinos and Portugales and Portuguese, and and it seems to be in reference to mixed race Jews. So it's important that you look at the videos.
okay, yeah. I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, I did what you asked me to
Sources.
do. Um,
That's the new currently going to Deuteronomy 28. They're trying to go to old books from archive.org and then make arguments from them. But my friend 93 and I, we've taken the liberty to go through those books, show how they're misreading them, bring out actual peer-reviewed academic resources that explain what these books are actually talking about, that they're misusing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
anything else that you're interested in, that you've heard them say, something that you were possibly wondering about? And for the record, yeah, man,
Um, yeah.
if we're talking biological descendants of Jacob, yeah, they're not biological descendants of Jacob. Definitely not by overwhelming majority. Definitely not.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely agree. I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah. I will also have to see like even because they're trying to claim the Bible, but they don't have a Bible to claim the Bible. Like if they had like a West African Bible that mentions the story of these ancient Israelites that came into West Africa. It says that they're they're going to be enslaved. If they disobey the curses and all that. But they don't have that either.
See,
So
but I wouldn't use that argument because they can simply invoke these insular communities in West Africa that did have research those groups. Those groups are primarily rabbinic Jewish in their beliefs, but they do have Torah scrolls, the Tanakh, that kind of thing. Later in history, obviously, you have Christianity finding its way into the continent. They could try to make appeals that way and try to finagle their way around that kind of suggestion. That's not the kind of argument that I would make, because there are ways for them to try to that don't necessarily fit them at all. You get what I'm saying? Simply because they believe that they can find the presence of actual Jews and maybe even Christians within the continent. And of course, there were West Africans that eventually embraced Christianity. So, um, especially, or at the very least, Central Africans, like in the Congo, for example. But yeah, man, it's really, it's foolhardy to make those appeals. However, just letting you know the argument that you're making, they could try to rebut it by bringing out that kind of piece of information. I'm not saying that it would necessarily be true or that it would be a great argument, but that's not the kind of argument you want to make. You want to make arguments where you have the least amount of resistance behind it, and you can actually show where their perspective is wrong, and even do a little internal critique, like internal critique of that you know for a fact there's no way that they could ever clearly show you this happening to African Americans, right?
Hey, you can
Not
hear me? Sorry
ambiguous,
to
but
cut you
just
off. Can you hear me?
yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good now, bro. Yep. But you want to show things that are unambiguous. That's what I generally do, and that usually immediately knocks down their argument because there's really nothing they can do with passages that they can't skirt around. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Y'all definitely agree. Yeah,
And
because
that's what
I
I do, obviously, because as a Christian, I believe in the Bible. So I presuppositions. And what I just do is it just I pick them apart uh, with an internal critique of the have their worldview, like we're living in reality, and more importantly,
yeah
that I think it's important that people realize that Hebrew Israelism is a assumption. It's an assertion that isn't actually corroborated by the facts that they're claiming they're bringing out. Like saying that. By the way, 93, you can speak to this. We've done presentations on Jews in West Africa, right? And we've debunked Hebrew Israelites on those communities, showing that they are not the ancestors of the West and Central African diaspora that came to the Americas by the overwhelming majority, right? 93.
Yeah, I just want to make sure y'all hear me because I'm on a Virgin Mobile hotspot right now. Yeah, you're right, Faithful. Yes.
And I
yeah
really wanted you to hear 93 because this is one of the best independent. But yeah, man, there's no evidence to substantiate the Hebrew Israelite worldview, especially the way that a lot of the Hebrew Israelites put it forward. Yeah, there's no substantiating that worldview, man. It's pure ducktails. It's pseudo.
yeah, I agree. And my best way to approach it is I go by like the primary original source, like the earliest source that mentions the slave trade, such as the Portuguese, and the Papal Bull, and in the Papal Bull in the Portuguese, they mention the Jews and other Papal Bulls, and they somewhat distinguish the Jews from the Negroes in West Africa. So I'm like, if the primary source mentions Negroes, those Negroes are the descendants of the latter slaves. So that kind of like that blocks them out of saying that, oh no, the slaves were the Jews.
Right.
Yeah, they try to say that the Jews came and make up all kind of lies and say the Jews came later on and like after the slave trade, and those are the ancestors. Yeah, but I would say that the slaves were always the descendants of those Negroes who were taken by the Portuguese, and
Hmm.
Negro has nothing to do with Jew or Shem or none of that. And
Yeah, in and
yeah,
of itself, it has nothing, right? Yeah, in and of itself. Of course, let the Hebrew Israelites tell it they're going to try to run to Acts 13 and 1 and say, see right here, except for the fact that only one person in that whole chapter is being called Niger, and that's Simeon.
yeah,
So, for example, Barnabas is not called Niger. None of the other men there are called Niger. I'd like to point out those inconvenient facts to them, and I like to tell them, because they'll assert that everybody there is being called Niger. Nah, it's only one person, and that's Simeon. And anybody that looks at the Greek and the grammar there, that it's in the singular construction, will know that's a fact. What I just said.
yeah. He's like and that's like I see that as like it's saying that he's the only black person, the only Niger amongst all these Jews. So yeah,
Yeah, if we're following their line of reasoning, which I think is a really flawed line of reasoning, But it is what it is, man. I mean, at this point with Hebrew Israelites, here's the thing, right? Have the Western Central African phenotype and be a Jew, or they can have the phenotype that looks like Larry King, or they can have the phenotype that looks like heck, they could look like Osama bin Laden. Uh, because being a Jew is a ethno religion, so the religious portion also allows for conversion. People can convert to Judaism, and they could even convert in the biblical times. That's why you have Esther 8:17 saying, "Many of the people of the land became Jews." Notice it says that they became Jews, which dismisses the claim that one can only be born a Jew. It's
Yeah,
inconvenient things like that kind of undermine their claims. Uh, much like the claim of, like, for example, being a Christian is not, it doesn't designate a specific ethnicity. Uh, Believers in Christ, regardless of their ethnic background, the literal term Greek Cristiano means follower of Christ or one who belongs to Christ.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Definitely, I agree.
Hey, my man, did you ever do music before? My brother in the middle that was
I mean,
talking.
yeah, he was talking. But not 93. But could you
No,
could
no,
you
no,
concur
no.
at the very least that my bad, Pharaoh. I was just saying to 93 because you had cut out. You had been cutting out, man. I was saying to 93.
Yeah, I
Hopefully that
got
won't be.
AOL internet. My internet is bad. I got the AOL hookup, dial up.
Hey man, come on. We got to keep it professional, man. This is a professional stream. Listen, I wanted to ask you a question. 93. The presentations that we did. Um, so with seriousness, um, we have rebutted a lot of the claims that Benaiah and these guys have put forward, and Dante, especially Dante. We did a whole like 4 hour, like 4 4 hour presentations on Dante, going through his sources and debunking them. Well, actually, no, you weren't there for the last one. That was me and Kevin G, but you were there for three of them. You and I did three of those live streams together. And the shout out to the other brother Matthew, shout out to him. But 93, you in the presentations that you were a part of, you know for a fact that they're misusing. I see we have Kareem in here. Could you speak to that misuse of those old sources, please,
Oh,
for the audience?
real quick, because my connection is really bad. Yeah, we did some stuff on the Portuguese Jews 4 years ago. I'm trying to remember what was the question.
Oh no, just about the appeal to communities in West Africa. That with our research, we discovered that it's the very Jews that Hebrew Israelites reject as Jews that were in West Africa, right?
Well, yeah. Most, I mean, yeah. I mean, they brought black people over there too, Judaized black people too,
Well,
in
meaning
Portugal. So
the people that were doing the Judaizing are the very Jews that they reject as Jews. Is the point?
yeah, pretty much. The story for the Portuguese Jews is going to begin in Portugal earlier, like 14. Y'all got to go back to like 1440. So yeah. But faithful, yeah, he pretty much on point about what he's saying. I just want to make that point before I jump off because my internet is really
Yeah.
bad, y'all.
Yeah, and there definitely was conversion that was done. So I wanted our friend Pharaoh to hear that conversion did take place in West Africa. But it was being done by, again, the very Jews that Hebrew Israelites are rejecting as Jews. Like, it's crazy because they'll look at old sources that refer to these Jews with certain pejoratives that you find being used. Like, for example, some of these guys, believe it or not, Pharaoh, some of these Jews are being called black, they're being called swarthy. And then when you look into the people that are being called black and swarthy, some of these people, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are in fact guys like Baruch Spinoza, who we have commissioned artwork of him where he is
Mhm.
clearly not a black man, right? But it goes to show you that the term swarthy, even black. How about this? What if I told you this? Ashkenazi Jews were called black and negroid parasites, Negroes, by Hitler.
Hmm.
Hitler and Mein Kampf. Here, I'll show it on my screen. Let me actually show that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, let me actually show that.
It's just, yeah, it's referring to their dark skin rather than, yeah.
No. It was just no. It really was with this like racist ideology that the Nazi Party had, where they were literally trying to claim that the Jews were like some bastardized race, and that like they were basically using the equivalent of the one drop rule and all this other nonsense.
Oh,
Let
got
me
it.
Yeah, let me show you real quick. Let me actually pull this up. Let me do it real quick. Okay, I got it right now. And this is by Tudor Parfit. So he has a great article, Are Jews Black? And it's, it's a part, it's like from a section of his book. So his book that he put out was I had it right here. What was the name of that book, man? It was Hybrid Hate. That's what it is. He has a book called Hybrid Hate. I recommend everybody, if you don't have that book, get that book. It'll help you understand a lot of the things that he's going to mention here. So let me actually read this, man. There's a lot to read here, but I really think it'll be important. Okay, I'm about to read this now. By the way, what's going on, Kareem? Kareem, are you a Christian or are you a Hebrew Israelite, man?
No, I'm a Christian. You hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, brother. Yep.
Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm interested in doing apologetics. So I'm looking like for information and
Yeah.
study guides on how to debunk the Hebrew Israelites and get
Yeah.
valid points on that.
So, my brother Vocab Malone, he has a book called Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites. That's a good primer to kind of understand the topic. And then there are like books that deal with the history, such as James Landing's book Black Judaism. Jacob Dorman, he has a book called Chosen Peoples. So those are two good books that deal with the history. But in terms of actual apologetics tourism, oh man, there's actually several brothers, man, that have books, but the names escape me right now. If you give me a chance, the next time I do one of these live streams, I will have the list for you. There are other brothers and sisters, and I would hate to not give you the information or just give it like kind of vaguely, because I'm not the titles escape me right now, but when I get the list, I will get them to you. There are brothers and sisters that have published books debunking Hebrew Israelites. So hopefully you come back for the next live stream, and I will have those for you. Then I promise I will have those.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have to step off. But yeah, thanks for allowing me to come on.
yeah. No, that's what's up, man. Yeah, and so I wanted to read this for the audience. So to show that Ashkenazi Jews were called black by Nazis. It says, from the middle of the 19th century until the Nazi period, the idea that Jews were multicolored played into the burgeoning idea that if you looked hard enough, all Jews were actually black. They were black in the sense that they had black blood, and they were also black in the most literal sense that their skin was black, even if you could be lulled into thinking it was a kind of white. In my book, Hybrid Hate, Conflations of Anti-Semitism and Anti-Black Racism, from the Renaissance to the Third Reich, I examine assumptions. You hear what he says, assumptions. These are not facts about Jewish color. This includes Sephardic Jews and other Jews for hundreds of years, which culminated in the absolute and foundational Nazi conviction that Jews were quote unquote Negroid. This and so if you look at this, this is a Nazi propaganda poster. Can y'all see it? Do you see how the Nazis were depicting Ashkenazi Jews on the left-hand side, and how they depicted their own women on the on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side how they depicted German women? Do you see that? This is a Nazi propaganda poster. You see that? It says, and you guys can see this right here. So, a blackface with stereotypically Jewish features, while the text itself attacks the Jews for defilement of Aryan women. Y'all see that? Look at how the Jews depicted. That's an Ashkenazi Jew, right? The skin, it says the color of skin was a minutely studied subject in the 19th century. One of the greatest authorities on pigmentation was the Englishman John Badeau. He had served with distinction in the Crimean War in the British Field Hospital, made famous by Florence Nightingale. And while he was there, did a physical anthropological study of the skins of the multinational population incarcerated in the hospitals of the Danderneels. He subsequently went on to analyze the eye and hair colors of the peoples of Europe, and thereby laid the foundation of the great pigmentation surveys which would be carried out in Germany and elsewhere in Europe in the last decades of the 19th century. One of those achievements was to create a meticulously annotated quote-unquote index of nigrescence of the population of Great Britain. Jews scored, meaning the Jews Hebrew Israelites reject, scored fully 100% on his nigrescence index, meaning his index of blackness. An even larger pigmentation study, which involved nearly 7 million school children, was carried out in Germany shortly after German unification in 1871 by the distinguished German scientist Rudolf Virchow. The teachers were provided with a set of instructions that required the children to stand in line with the blondest haired children at one end and the darkest haired children on the other in a continuum of hair color. This way, the children learned that there was a hierarchy of color. In the Virchow study, skin color was quote unquote shown to be a function not only of what was visible, but also of the relationship between hair and eye color. Visible skin color was, in fact, of no importance for the study. Children were asked to roll up their sleeves to reveal the true color of their arm. In other words, the skin color that you could see with your naked eye was not necessarily the real skin color of the individual. For that, you would have to have some specialized knowledge and partially undress him or her. And there were quote unquote scientific ways of determining what skin color actually was. So this was really pseudoscience, for the record. This is what he means when he puts it in quotation marks, like quote unquote scientific. This fascination with Jewish color came at precisely the point at which emancipation had finally come to the Jews of the Reich. However, it was also the point when the hatred of Jews was being increasingly expressed in not social, religious, or economic, but in racial terms. One of the catalysts for this development being Wilhelm Marr, who in 1879 introduced the term anti-Semitism into the world's political lexicon. Marr had started his political life as an anarchist. He had no particularly anti-Jewish views and in fact had 3 Jewish wives, one of whom he loved a distraction. It was during an extended trip to North America that Marr learned how to be a racist. He'd seen slavery of black people in action and wholeheartedly approved of it. He loathed black people, meaning he hated black people, and soon transferred his contempt for blacks wholesale to Jews. Filled with the views of the racist physical anthropologists of the time, such as the Scottish physician Robert Knox, or Joseph Arthur Gobineau, the French aristocrat who helped develop the theory of the Aryan master race, Marr argued that the blood of the Negro flowed freely in the veins of Jews. Jews, therefore, really were somatically as well as metaphorically the blacks of Europe. What Americans did to blacks, Marr advocated Europeans should now do to Europe's own blacks, the Jews, meaning the same Jews Hebrew Israelites reject. Even before the rise of Nazism, Marr's equation of Jews and blacks started to fill the media of the time. Theodor Frisch, the publisher of the anti-Semitic German magazine Hammer, explained that Jews' loathsome characteristics could only be explained through their, and I'll even say it this way, even though he didn't put it, quote-unquote African ancestry. The acclaimed French novelist and Holocaust denier Louis Ferdinand Céline considered the Jews to be entirely African. Quote, "Le Juif est un nègre, la race semite n'existe pas." The Jew is a Negro. The Semitic race does not exist. Now, keep in mind, this guy was anti-Semite. Nazi and fascist race theorists embraced these ideas enthusiastically. There was a broad consensus among Nazi, Vichy French, and Italian fascist anthropologists that there were marked Negroid elements in Jews. These ideas were also present in the United States. The Ku Klux Klan regularly lumped blacks and Jews together. I'll read that one more time. The Ku Klux Klan regularly lumped blacks and Jews together, as did many homegrown American race theorists. In 1910, Dr. Arthur Talmadge Abernathy, the author of some 50 books, published The Jew a Negro, in which he stated categorically that, quote, "The Jew of today, as well as his ancestors in other times, is the kinsman and descendant of the Negro," end quote. Much of the inspiration for the discriminatory legal codes enacted against Jews, blacks, and others by the Nazis came from the Jim Crow laws. However, the main problem with the American racial legislation from a Nazi perspective was that Americans did not formally include Jews in the category of quote-unquote coloreds. But in 1934, Roland Freisler, later the presiding judge of the Nazi People's Court, noted that this omission didn't really matter. The American legislation could be used without much modification because, as he put it, quote, "Any judge would place the Jews along with the coloreds, even though they look outwardly white." Let me read that one more time. This is what this Nazi said. Any judge would place the Jews along with the coloreds, even though they, the Jews, look outwardly white. Hitler argued that Germany had been deliberately negrified, meaning blackened, by the Jews, meaning Ashkenazi Jews, whose intent was to quote unquote weaken and destroy German society through racial contamination. In Mein Kampf, he wrote of the Jews, systematically, these Negroid parasites in our national body corrupt our innocent fair haired girls and thus destroy something that can no longer be replaced in the world. End quote. As Jews today confront the charges of white privilege and lament the deteriorating relationship between African Americans and American Jews since the glory days of Jewish participation in the struggle for civil rights, both groups might dwell for a moment on the thought that the color of Jews and blacks has only recently been uncoupled. The hatred of Jews and the hatred of blacks have a common origin. It is indeed a hybrid hate. And that's the end of the article. Notice that this is Tudor Parfit, the British historian, actual scholar. I thought that you guys might find that interesting. I just wanted to read that, you know. You know what I mean? And I won't repeat what this brother said. He said it. This brother's black, by the way. This brother on his daddy's side. Yeah, he got a black man on his daddy's side. So just for the record. Anyways, I would read it, but some Hebrew Israelites don't like to include Latinos in their list of Israelites. So I got to refrain, man. I got to refrain. Even though you and I both know, my good brother, we know the reality about Latinos. We definitely know the reality about our respective people groups, that we are also admixed with the slaves. So, with the people that were taken as slaves to the Americas. So there's that reality. But, some Hebrew Israelites don't know that, and they think in ignorance. So, sometimes you just gotta, you gotta kind of play it safe, if you kind of catch my drift. And, is this Tazara? Nah, this got to be 93. Stop it. This 93 or this really Tazara? What's going on, Tazara? This is Tazara.
No, yeah, it's really me. It's really me. What's good, bro?
Tazara, I want to ask you a question. What is your evidence of being an Israelite?
Well, I actually hopped on to ask you a question about everything.
No, I'm asking the question. So what is your evidence of being an Israelite?
Why do you?
Yeah, we want to talk about that because you are adjacent to the One West perspective, and I said from the jump, and you can actually listen to the live stream, that anybody that comes in here that holds, you notice I'm still talking, right?
Okay, I apologize. Go ahead.
Anybody that's adjacent to the One West viewpoint must demonstrate that they're an Israelite before we get to anything. So what is your evidence of being an Israelite? And don't think this is going to be short. We're going to be here for a second. What's your evidence?
Actually, I will preface by saying I only have about 15, 20 minutes.
I know. So that'll be enough time for us to get into it, I imagine, right?
Okay. So basically my answer to that would be nobody has 100% evidence.
Wait, hold on a second, bro. Hold on, man. Hold on. This thing is... Hold on. I got this other device connected. Hold on. My bad. Why this thing always does it. Yeah, go ahead, man.
So, hold on, let me...
My bad, go ahead.
You good. So, can you hear me? Because I got in an AirPod.
You're good. Right, you're good, bro. You're good.
Okay. My answer to that question would be nobody on this planet, including anybody claiming to be an Israelite, has 100% proof that they are an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All we can do is provide different evidences and try to build our case. And it's whoever has the best case in terms of whether or not people want to believe or not. That's, I guess it's whoever they believe has the best case. But I would.
Yeah, but if I could, but you guys don't have a good case, because when we've gone over what you call evidence, not only are we showing people that you're misreading sources, misusing sources, but when we deal with the biblical text itself, and I think that should be our primary starting point, you guys are also misreading and misusing passages. So, for example, do you believe that African Americans fit all the...
So I gave an answer to your question, and now you're trying to push it along in a different direction. When I hopped on,
I'm still pushing it in the same direction. Do you notice that I asked the question? I'm asking you a question.
Okay, hold on. Let me talk for a second. No disrespect. I'm saying I'd like to be able to.
I'm asking a question, so I would like an answer to that question. Otherwise, you won't be in the stream much longer.
I answered.
All right, let's try this one more time, Tazara. I'm going to ask you the question again, I'm going to ask as many questions as I feel necessary because we're going to demonstrate your claim of being an Israelite. So, with that being said, Tazara, do you believe that African Americans as a people group fit the curses of all the curses of Deuteronomy 28? Yes or no?
Faithful is scared to let me address that whole presentation he just put on.
I'm not
He knows
afraid
that
to address anything. I think the problem is that you don't want to actually address that question. You notice that you don't want to answer that question. And Tazara, I'm going to clip this and make a video out of it. So I suggest that you do this now before you embarrass yourself some more. So let's try this one more time. Do you believe African Americans fit all the curses of Deuteronomy 28? Yes or no?
Before I answer that,
I
can
need
I
an answer.
respectfully hold on? I'm gonna answer your question.
No, I'm not gonna
talk about the presentation.
Not,
I'm gonna say something else.
I don't care about your something else. Go do it in another live stream. I'm gonna ask one more time. Are you gonna address the question that I asked you? You're not gonna address the question that I asked you? That's what you're gonna do? You're gonna get your flea on? Yes, I'm asking. Are you gonna address my question?
Yes, I believe we fit the curses. Now, can I please respond?
No, I'm not done. No, I'm not done. Tazara, you say you fit the curses. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28:52. I want you to tell me when this happened to African Americans as a people group under the specific title of African Americans, because you believe the curses are cyclical, right? You believe that over and over, that they don't just in one time, correct?
You kind of cut out for a second, but I think I heard.
I'm going to say it one more time. Do you believe that the curses are cyclical, perpetual, and that they're going to keep happening over and over, correct?
You know what? I'm going to leave. I tried to be respectful, and I tried to ask you.
Get out of here, man. Get out of here, bro. Stop with the crying, bro. So everybody knows I'm going to take that clip of Tazara. I'm going to put it on my channel, and I'm going to show Tazara refuses to answer questions. When he gets asked questions, he doesn't like to answer the questions directly. He wants to ask you questions, but he never wants to actually address questions when they're posed to him. That's what he does. He was cornered. That's right, brother Jim Green. That's what happens. And Tazara indeed holds to the One West perspective. He's not a member of a camp, but he's adjacent to their beliefs. That's crazy, man. Right when I went to ask him a question about Deuteronomy 28:52, when did that happen? He doesn't want to answer that question. Come on, man. That's crazy, bro. I'm sorry. Y'all keep Tazara in prayer, for real. Nah, seriously. Definitely keep him in prayer. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to say to y'all is definitely keep Tazara in prayer. You know, I highly suggest that you keep the other people, not the other people, the other gentlemen, because there were only two people that came in here, that you keep both him and Tazara in prayer. Yeah, Tazara definitely needs prayer. Keep all these folks in prayer that the Lord would open up their eyes to the deception that they're in. Yep, let me see. Yeah, you right, sis. Wow, indeed. Yep. But anyways, if we could, I think we've been going for 2 hours. Unless we get another Hebrew Israelite that comes up in here, I think we might have to shut this one down and keep it up. And it'll be interesting to see if we can finally get, at some point in the future, a Hebrew Israelite willing to stand on their square. So, nah, Tazara, you had your chance. You had your chance, sir. Be on the lookout for the video. I'm going to have a clip of your appearance on here. I hope you will enjoy your lack of answers, and people will learn that you don't like to actually address questions. Maybe next time, Tazara, maybe next time when you get some act right, we'll let you back in here, and maybe you can actually answer some questions, you know? Yep, that's right, man. I'm telling you, these guys don't know what to do when they get directly cornered. They want to get you in some soliloquy where they get to ask you a million questions, and then you never actually press them. Nah, fam. We don't do that around here. Prove that you're an Israelite. Demonstrate that you're an Israelite. then we'll get to everything else. If you can't demonstrate it, then already your worldview has crumbled. It's as simple as that. You know? Notice that dude didn't want to even get into the topic of the curses. Any other time, he loves the curses. He likes to get into all this other stuff until he gets cornered on a platform where the host knows how to ask him the right questions. It's crazy, man. Shout out to the brothers and sisters who came through and showed love. So with that, another live stream on Friday. If not, then I will definitely have something uploaded that I think you brothers and sisters will enjoy. Regardless, I appreciate you. For those who celebrate Thanksgiving, I definitely hope that you guys will, I definitely hope that you guys will, enjoy and appreciate the videos that are being uploaded, the live streams, and that you'll share them with those that you love. And yeah, I just want to let you guys know that the love is appreciated. I definitely appreciate the love and the support. So with that being said, we're gonna end it here, and we'll keep doing these live streams, and eventually, hopefully, we'll pull more people out of this false doctrine that these guys are holding to. So with that being said, God bless you all. I hope this has edified someone out there. Until next time, take care. God bless you all.